What makes you cry? There really are quite a few different reasons, I'm thinking. It could be just because of a natural reaction to something, such as you're cutting onions in the kitchen and you begin to weep, or you're outside and it's windy and dust is blowing and the natural reaction from your eyes is to blink back tears. It could be because of some physical pain, as you just stubbed your toe really bad, or you just broke a bone somehow and it hurts tremendously, or you're recovering from a surgery and to move in a way that your body is not ready to move quite yet, and the scar tissue causes pain. You might cry because of that. You certainly could cry because of emotional pain. Sometimes those losses that you are grieving last for days, weeks, months, even years, and tears last for a long time. You could cry because of a tender-hearted hello or a tender-hearted goodbye. You could cry because of a joyful victory that you're celebrating or a joyful surprise you weren't expecting. You might even cry when something touches your heart somewhat unexpectedly, such as when you're singing your favorite hymn and that verse just gets you every time. What about when you see people sinning? Does that make you cry? Too often, the reaction is not tears, and sadly, it's not a very good reaction when we see other people sinning out there in the world. One reaction people could have that wouldn't be very good would be if they said, "Ooh, that looks attractive, that looks fun, I want to do that too." Or they might say, with a puffed up spirit and a superior air about them, "I would never do something like that. Those people are living like God's enemies, and I cannot wait to watch him bring his holy wrath on them." Or somebody might see sin going everywhere in the world and just throw up their hands in despair and be frustrated and disappointed and almost with a paralyzed attitude of why bother even trying anymore. When the Apostle Paul was encouraging the Philippians to live for Christ and not like the rest of the world, here is what he had to say about that. And it involves tears that are a good thing. Philippians chapter 3, verse 18 and 19. "For as I have often told you before, and now tell you again, even with tears, many live as enemies of the cross of Christ. Their destiny is destruction. Their God is their stomach. Their glory is in their shame. Their mind is set on earthly things. But our citizenship is in heaven." The Apostle Paul surveyed the world around him, and the conclusion that he came to quickly made him weep. He saw sin running amok. He saw many living as enemies of the cross of Christ. The battle was fierce, and many were opposed to Christ with all that they had. But that didn't make Paul puff up with a superior air, and it didn't make him compromise God's truth and help him convince himself that it really wasn't that bad. No, he saw it like it was, and it made him weep. He had tears because so many people were living a lifestyle of consume, 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 yet no matter how much they consumed, they were never satisfied. It's because their God was their stomach. Their destiny was destruction. Their glory was in their shame. They bragged about their sin as though God would never hold them accountable. And it's all because their mind was just on this earth, earthly things. Let's adopt Paul's attitude for ourselves. And as we see things going wrong in the world, and as we see people sinning all over the place, more and more, we dare not want to follow that example and think that they have it better than us. We dare not compromise the truth and act like it's not that big a deal either. We certainly don't want to become more earthly minded and less heavenly minded. But instead, we want to redouble our efforts to become more heavenly minded ourselves and help them be the same way. Ask God today to help you have a Christ-centered attitude when you see sin all over the place in the world, when you see people living as enemies of the cross of Christ. Ask God to help you to help them one day to realize their sinfulness, have deep repentance over it, maybe even with tears, and then move forward living no longer as an enemy of the cross of Christ, but instead as a child of God, confident of their eternal citizenship in heaven.